Social media is actually the easiest way to market your product. Only if you're able to use it judiciously, intelligently, backing it up with data analytics. When a Google comes back and say that, hey, my algorithm is implementing and I love these names, pandas and pigeons, and all AI written articles are not going to rank on Google. Absolutely should not be, because human beings can do much better. The more you adopt technology, the greater you can manage your time. My only fascination about tech is how can I extract more time for myself in what I want to do. And that is where tech has always been, helpful.
Hey, thank you so much, Poonam, for doing this. Really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. Can absolutely get started with me explaining everything about you, but I think it's best done justice when you talk about yourself a little bit and tell our audience, how can they know more about you, and introduce yourself very quickly to the audience.
First of all, thank you so much for your very warm invitation. I have loved reading everything about your business, and that's what excited me to be here on your podcast, which you have started. So congratulations to the whole team. As a marketer, the easiest thing for me to do to talk about myself is to guide all your audience to go what we call CTA, call to action. Please land on my LinkedIn and figure out things about me. But having said that, it's a long journey for me. Very, very satisfying journey as a marketer for the last 23 years. Roughly about seeing, like for example, in stock market, we say that you have to see few bull runs to understand what a bear run is.
Yeah.
You have to witness some downfalls to understand what a bull run really is.
Yeah.
Likewise, I think I have been very, very fortunate to be a marketer at this time and 20 years ago, because this is paradigm shift in the way marketing world, business world, the entire world has been panning out. So the new generation or the today's marketers, I think they lost out on so many things which were very close to our heart. They are going to be just tech-oriented marketers.
Yep.
But for people like me, kids who were grown in 80s, it's a fantastic run because we have seen all the flavors.
And I want to go deep into that. I have not seen the marketing that was happening in 80s and 90s firsthand. I have seen those campaigns in retrospection and been amazed by them. We were talking about Fevicol ad, in one of the previous episodes, and just the thought process behind it and the impact that it had on the brand at large was fascinating. And you absolutely were right, because when I speak to brand marketers today, I hear tech all the time. What is it that the world today is missing? Let's go a little deep into that.
That's a good question. See, there's nothing which is a missing leg, but there are several layers that have been added to what marketers pre-digital era were doing, and now what marketers are expected to do. So marketers were simply, plugged in support teams. Now I'll talk from the perspective of coming from the corporate world. Support plugged in teams to push sales. As simple as that.
Okay.
Today, it's a beautiful time for marketers because you are the one leading the entire business. The sales is marketing.
Correct.
10 years ago, I used to say there's a thin line building between sales, because for marketers, it used to be a high-nose job. We are marketing, we are sales. Those lines started blurring in 2011, 2012. By the time it was 2013 and 2014, social media, digital became a part of our lives. And there was no way that you are a marketer and you don't know digital, or you are not digital, or you're not thinking digital. So, that entire, what we call in Hindi, manthan happened in the marketing field. CMOs, leaders who were able to adapt and adopt both digital were able to survive and thrive. So what is missing? I would say there are a lot of additions now, because our capabilities have also increased.
Yep.
There is tech helping us out.
Yes.
So nobody has to sit and think of ideas. You can just get your keywords out on some tech platform. There is ChatGPT and Bard and everyone trying to help you and support you. But the meaningful work has increased. So what we were relying upon 100% on human intelligence from a creative point of view, that 5 people thinking creatively and will deduce to something which possibly will be liked by the world, customers or no, to today, we can look back, analyze what my customers are going to like. And that is where the data analytics is coming in picture. So today's marketer has manifold layers of work, but the work has become smarter.
Yep.
That's the difference. So what is missing is, I won't say that there is anything which must be missed. It should be more plugged in. New arenas should be plugged into what you were. So as a marketer, your heart should be on the product.
Absolutely.
As a marketer, your heart should be on the brand.
Absolutely.
You need to first love your brand and your product and what you're going to be delivering. So if you ask anybody who's on the marketing side, sitting in a brand like Nike or Apple, would their passion, their love for the brand, their dedication is going to be very, very different from, when you just take up a job and you're a part of the team and, you're just trying to figure out, okay, this is the brand I am thinking of working for 3 years and move out. So I think that loyalty and that heart in your brand and product is somewhere I think needs to come back, because 20 years ago, we used to be very ultra passionate about what we were doing. We were so passionate that in fact I had to sit with my teams around 13 and 14 to tell them, especially the creative guys, that don't get so attached to your creative work, because they could not accept failures. If on digital platforms, you have to constantly do A/B testings. So by the time it is evening, gone are the days when you used to put out a billboard and wait for 3 months to come back and say, guys, tell us how it has impacted the sales number.
Yeah.
Sales numbers are live in front of us. That's the magic of data.
Yeah.
So you had to hard train and rewire those creative people that don't get attached to your work. Churn out more faster in an easy way and know where the brand on your sleeves. You must do that.
Yeah. And I think now it has gone to the extreme other end, where we are focusing so much on analytics and data and what next, that in the process, we're not able to go deep into the product. When I say that, what I want to say is that I believe many of the marketers for brands like Nike, that, since you mentioned that, would not have visited a Nike factory to really go deep into the technology of the product itself, because it's so easily available, on digital platforms through a digital training on Zoom, that you don't have to go all the way, visit the factory, go deep into the product. But I think the value and the attachment that you get by visiting the factory and holding the product in your hands and, understanding the real difference between this and what was being sold earlier by the brand is very, very important. And since you touched upon it, I feel that because all my marketer friends are only thinking about putting the word out, not going deep enough into why is this a big deal. Would you agree?
That's where the whole question of your passion comes into picture. Are you working on a brand because it pays you well? Or you are on a brand because this is the brand you want to work with and for? That's the difference. So the loyalty paradigm used to be very different 20 years ago. That loyalty paradigm today is you can't think of building teams for next 10 years you're going to work with me.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah, because I think that's also because jobs are so easily available. Earlier, you would have to go through the whole drill to find a new job. And again, because there were so many opportunities, there were only so many brands, you would want to stay longer with that brand. I mean, just to, give an example, I could have a friend who probably orders from Swiggy but works for Zomato, or vice versa, I don't think that was a thing, around 5 years back, when a direct competitor brand you would actually wear up your sleeve when you're actually using it as a consumer, but all day long you're actually marketing the other one. I think that has increased now because of the number of opportunities that are available in the market. Or do you attribute it to something else?
I would 100% attribute it to the skill set that you have. There are ample opportunities for people who are in the game as they're supposed to be in the game. India is a massive opportunity by the virtue of we being a human resource of more than 1.4 billion people, which is the population of our country, the highest. And out of this, we are talking about an average age of 29, right? And out of this entire pool, we are also looking at a number which is massive. We are looking at 1 billion people who are under the age of 35. Now, this is an aspirational country.
Absolutely.
With absolute young talent, people who are born with mobile phones and technology, thanks to Jio. And this is not a product plugin, or they have not given me anything to say this, but that's the reality and the truth.
Yes.
Had it not been in 2017 for Jio to become a part of our lives, we would not be able to be who we are as an organization, as a country today.
Yep.
Young population and young people can take up tasks very fast and easily, and they come with the open mindset to learn.
Correct.
So as you asked me that question about what is missing, the missing piece here is loyalty and understanding the product process, because somebody was actually telling me that, does a good product need advertising or marketing? I thought about it. I said, that's a good question. And then I responded saying that only a product need marketing or advertising. A good or a bad product is defined by customers. So first is your product. What is it that you're trying to put out in the market? If that product is ready, then the second leg is compulsory for everything, any product or service, which is your GTM. My product is ready. What is my go-to-market strategy? GTM is not a compulsion or an option for a good or a bad product. Once you go through the GTM process, then your product or service reaches the customers, and then a customer is going to qualify it to be a good product or a bad product.
Correct.
So there is no option for any product or service to not market or advertise.
Because awareness at the first layer is important.
So how can you have a product or a service where you think that in today's time I can run my show on social media? Social media is actually the easiest way to market your product. Only if you're able to use it judiciously, intelligently, backing it up with data analytics.
Yep.
So long ago, all our campaigns would be at the mercy of numbers coming late.
Yep.
We not able to act on it fast. We not able to think fast, deliver fast. And there was a long tag that let marketers sit idle. Today's day and age, marketing is moved to hyper speed the way it has moved to hyper personalization. Yep. So I will be able to personalize things for you only if I know that how fast I can execute my things. So less of strategy work, because strategy is taken over by tech, which is AI. You can just put a little bit of intelligent prompt engineering to understand what data or numbers are happening.
Yeah.
But what you need to actually do is execution. So marketers, gone are the days when used to be segmented into functions. Functions are important. But now people have to deep dive and understand what is their core skill set. Are you good at execution? Less good at strategy? Don't waste your time in strategy. Because strategy, any which ways, is going to be plugged in with tech.
Yeah.
Only human brain will not do strategy. What human brain is supposed to do is creativity.
Correct.
So from that perspective, when a Google comes back and say that, hey, my algorithm is implementing, and I love these names, pandas and pigeons, and all AI written articles are not going to rank on Google. Absolutely should not be, because human beings can do much better.
Okay.
No AI can write the entire book for you that I can sit and relish reading. That has to come from, the subconscious brain of a human mind, which is not replicable. So the core strength will still lie with humans, but replication of things, amplification of things. Like, for example, a study said that the creative ads designed by human beings, right, created and designed and written by human beings garner any day much more results and convertibility than what AI is. So AI could be plugged in to amplify and make variations, but cannot be doing things for you.
Yeah, it's funny that we're even discussing that there's competition between AI and humans already. But I think from what I'm hearing, I think you think that the creative aspect of it will remain with humans, while the operational and scalability challenges and even the analytical thinking might transfer to AI in the future. Strategy might transfer to AI, but the creative prowess will always remain with humans, or humans will always excel.
Who has created who? So the tech is created by humans.
Of course.
That's the truth, right? We will, as humans and intelligent human beings, will have to constantly evolve, be 2 steps ahead of tech to be able to deliver that tech to the market. But tech is going to be our life. Like, for example, there are so many innovative things that are happening, which we preempted thought that will happen after 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. And there is somebody who's coming out with the first leg of that innovation today. So how fast the world is changing. So humans will have to have that mindset of thinking very fast, but still keep that element of human, humanized element of feelings, emotions, real emotions intact, so that whatever we are able to deliver to the market, to the consumers, for the consumer experience, customer experience, always have that element of heart in it. The moment that element of heart is, like, for example, you go to ChatGPT, put up a command and say, write this for me. You know how the AI writes? You don't want to read that. Then you want to go back and say, can you humanize it? And how AI humanizes is also very funny. So several times when things come in on my, table for approvals, and I'll say, I don't like both. Where is the real human here? Because this is not talking to me.
Yeah.
This is doing its job.
Yeah.
So human creativity will have to constantly evolve and adapt the tech which is happening and be able to be 2 steps ahead of that. So we can't relax saying that humans cannot be replaced. No, a lot of work that otherwise humans were doing is already replaced.
Yeah.
So I think it's a war.
Absolutely. And when I speak to anyone who's completed 2 decades in an industry, I feel there is a pattern that they did right that others didn't. And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question. When it comes to any organization, there's a pyramid, and the pyramid is scary for someone who's on the bottom because they can clearly see that only so many will reach the top. So, for you to reach the top over the last 2 decades and then consistently being relevant, you have to follow a pattern that worked out. I'm sure hard work is one thing, but many others couldn't reach where you did. For someone starting out, how can they find those patterns and stay relevant as the industry evolves? We are talking about an industrial revolution right now, where people might shift to using AI. And you've seen, I'm sure, a bunch of such revolutions over the last 20 years. What is that pattern that keeps people going when others drop out, from a relevancy score standpoint? Would love to decode that with you.
That's absolutely. I will have to spill the beans of you're asking me my code, right?
Yeah.
Cliche would be, as you said, to say hard work. I don't think so. It's a lot of smart work. And because you targeted your question to people who are starting out.
Yep.
See, how do you remain relevant in fashion? The simple answer would be, I track fashion.
Yep.
So I know what is happening in Paris. I was sitting and talking to a creative guy, and I said, how do you come out with these palette of colors every year, January, So he said, I track global colors. I said, how are you putting, so, the entire fall is going to be this color. So how do you track that? How do you come out with a hot pink or a beige green, which is going to be? So he said, I am tracking. Tracking is nothing but research. So by the virtue of you today being in the tech world, research has become very, very easy. Anybody who's starting out will have to understand what is happening in the world and craft their careers accordingly. So one is your core domain. Like, I have been a marketer all my life, so that's been my core domain. But I will have to take a call. I want to be in the same business and perfect my craft in that business. Then in which case I will have to be willing to go for my personal growth, from one competitor to another, right? How do you grow? You will have to move.
Okay.
Unless your organization is able to put you on that. So as an employee, you have that journey, or else you commit yourself to your own business or a startup where you don't have to look around, right? So an employee mindset will always work. I am delivering my skill set and I need to grow. If I'm not able to grow, I need to move out. Simple maths. No brainer. But when you're moving out, that should be your strategy. Where are you moving out? Is it going to add back to your profile when somebody is looking at it or no? So for me, when I started out working, it was very clear that I want to learn different businesses. I never wanted to commit myself to one business because I'm a creative person at heart, So मैं खुद ही बोर हो जाती हूँ. When I have given everything out. So then I would think that, for example, I was with Orange 2002.
Yep.
I was in the entire journey when Orange became Hutch. So 2003, we had that beautiful, fantastic, that pug dog saying that.
Pug is the thing because of Hutch.
Yeah, of course. So then Reliance, kar lo duniya mutti mein. So there were umpteen offers. But I said, I have given all that I had in my head for this business in telecom. I need to move on. That was very personal call that I took. So I think what really helped me was a lot of knowledge that I was able to put on the table by the virtue of learning different businesses. So from telecom, moving to heavy engineering, manufacturing, media, to then entered BFSI. In BFSI, I also went on to learn different businesses.
Yep.
So I think that helps you learn as you go on the go. So that is one type of career planning. And the other type could be, okay, I want to perfect one business, one type. In which case, if you want to be just in one stream, then you will have to master a lot of skills because you can't be repeating the skills.
Yep.
That is a different career strategy. Having said that, unlike any other function, marketing is becoming interesting day by day. I'm still not able to catch up with so many things. I want to watch so many podcasts myself and I don't have time.
Yeah.
I really want somebody to, Siri, can you wrap up everything and put it in there should be a chip.
Yeah.
I should plug in and all the knowledge should come into my
all
head.
is up to that.
So yeah, we all want that and we are not able to. So it's such a evolving world and you want to be a part of this evolving world. So self-learning is critical.
Got it.
It's not that you are on a job and you're earning your salary and done and dusted, gone are those days. Been there, done that is over actually.
Got it. So staying relevant and then also being at the right place at the right time and then realizing when to switch is another important, piece of art that you need to hone to be able to arrive at the right place at the right time. It's very easy to think in the hindsight and be like, oh, I took all the right decisions. But actually when you were taking that decision, were you able to see that vision that this company will become the next big thing? Very interesting. I think this is my favorite question, but also the most cliche question, which is like, what is that one campaign that you're extremely proud of? I know, it's unfair to the work that you've done, asking that one campaign, but there's one that sticks around and you want to, talk more about. I would love to go deep into that.
Yeah, it'll be unfair. There's a long list. But yeah, something little recent and something very interesting because by the virtue of doing things, sometimes as marketers also you get into that rut, which is run-of-the-mill ideas. Okay, it's very, you get attached to your work. You know that 5 things you did last year, 2 things gave you good results.
Yeah.
The CEO was happy, business was happy. So it's no-brainer. You're going to replicate that. And then you want to just be a little bit creative and say, I want to try this. Yeah. Somebody should give me budgets for this and I want to try this. Yeah. So again, I got a little lucky. I was manning the entire digital business in my previous organization. And after setting the stage up, which is, okay, you have a funnel, you have a customer acquisition piece, which is running fine. You know where your keywords are working, what platforms are working for you, how much is email marketing contributing, SMS, mobile marketing, and how much is digital marketing, all sorted, okay? This is the funnel which is working. But then that was the 50% of the funnel because the teams were able to get new clients on the system. And then I was handpicked to understand the problems which were happening on this digital platform with respect to customers coming in, transacting maybe once or just coming in, not transacting and getting dormant for 6 months, over 6 months. So the moment it is 6 months in the life cycle, it's a dormant customer. Dormant/dead.
Yeah.
That is the lingo.
Yeah.
So on this platform, we had around 2 million dead customers. And that is huge. So I said, okay, now when I was sitting, I said, what is to be done? Dead is dead.
Yep.
No, we had spent so much of money in acquiring these customers and they are dead. What can we do? So I said, this is interesting. If they are dead, now the challenge is not acquiring new, which is very easy in today's time.
Yeah.
How do we activate? So it was all about reactivating these dormant customers.
Interesting.
Now to go back Why are they dead? They
Yeah.
were the one to give the lead. They were the one to come on the system.
Yep.
Then what happened? They never interacted on the system,
Yeah.
did anything, or for that matter, transacted. And this entire, whatever I'm talking about, is data being done at the human level. There are no databases or systems supporting this. This was way back in 2017.
Yep.
One key insight after drilling down to the level that even talking to the call center guys, what kind of queries do you get? Some kind of, how CID would work. Now you're in a homicide and you have to plug all the... We said, chalo, kuch interesting hai, let's do that. So went to everywhere, wherever touch points internal was, to understand what people are talking on the shop floor, call center, product teams, tech teams, mobile teams, and were able to get some insights inside the room. Then we went back to say 2 million, how many understand the journey, understand the type, target audience, and if we can bucket them as much as possible.
Yep.
From those buckets, now this is all close to a work of 4 or 5 months, dedicated teams trying to work on it. Because there was no platform to put a command and say, I need this data, I need this insight, Went back to understand that all of them were together from one segment, and all of them, this was a peculiar thing, they only opened the account by giving their lead. After that, they all did not do anything. Like sometimes you would know in the journey, somebody came, you would have heat maps to understand what was the journey on the platform, on which page, XYZ. So this one insight was maybe they were tricked into coming on our platform.
Got it.
One. So, okay, great marketing campaign. They were tricked into. Uske baad kuch nahi kiya.
ठीक है.
Now what do we do? Second insight that came on the table was that after one login, they never logged in again. So, okay, they are not liking the product, they are hating the product, or it could be that there is some problem in them being able to log in. And you will not believe if I tell you, because this is a very long research study on this product. Cut short, what was the real reason these 2 million people were not transacting or acting or doing anything on the system? They all forgot their password. And there was no way to reset the password, because I'm talking about a financial system.
Yeah.
Resetting now is very easy. 2017, this was the hitch. This was a product hitch at our end, that it was difficult for them to reset the password.
Got it.
Now, the challenge was, forget about reactivating them or making them become reactive. It's about first giving them the solution.
Yeah.
And now we have, as a product or a business, also evolved. Earlier, when they were brought in, we were doing 2-3 services or products. Now, our product suite is also, so they would have interest to transact with us.
Yep.
So it was a big challenge, because we had to go back to the tech teams and say, the first thing was, I wanted a universal password. I never wanted to make it complicated.
Correct.
Customers like when it is easy.
Single sign-on is so much easier.
I just wanted a standard universal password to go, because they did not do anything on the platform. Their bank accounts were not attached. There was nothing at risk. I just wanted them to log in and come back so that I can talk to them.
Yeah.
Getting that universal password for 2 million was some challenge. We managed somehow.
Yeah.
It was timed that only for 2 days, 3 days. We did a little litmus with little bucket, of customers, and we saw that there was traction getting built.
Yeah.
And then we said, okay, let's go all out. And we started creating this communication one by one in buckets. Now come to the communication when we have identified the problem. This is the problem statement. Again, what am I going to do as a brand? Send an email. This person is not interested in my emails. How will they open? Why will they act? Why should they even read that email? There is no other way to reach. It's just email ID. Correct? So that's when the innovation happened. And I thought that, and this all is something, as a marketer, when you're sitting and you're deliberating on issues, ideas come, ideas happen. So the common answer was that nobody opens these emails.
Yeah.
This plethora of, in BFSI especially, is just email marketing. I mean, thousands of email you're getting.
Yeah.
How will it be clutter-free? Why will this email be opened? So there was a very tacky, but I said, now we need to do this, right? And nobody really cares about dead customers. So we had little freedom also. Live active customers, you're sending something, will be a lot of compliance, will be a lot of approvals at XYZ, BFS I'm talking about. So here we could take some, liberties. So we said that now we need to reach them with something that at least they are motivated to open the emails. sometimes it becomes a blind spot. You see the name of the brand and you don't want to open it because you don't have anything, no vested interest, right?
Correct.
So then we innovated, took certain liberties to go with a little tacky subject line. When I'm using the word tacky because it had a lot of drama, which BFSI is always very, very shied away from. So we did that. And once the open rates were highest, because again, you have to break the mold. When a customer perceives you to be speaking in a certain manner, and the moment they see something which is totally different, totally off than how you speak as a brand, what's wrong? What's wrong? Have they hired somebody new, or is it a mistake?
It's
sometimes
like
it
pattern
happens.
breaking, right?
Pattern breaking. So that absolutely worked for us. Highest open rates on this email. And then when you open the email, I was very clear, nobody is going to read. So I wanted business. I wanted conversion. In my head, I wanted that we have to not just reactivate them, but get them to do something with us on the platform, because that's the real win, right? So 2017, I believe COVID was the time when everybody started using Alexas and Siris of the world, started plugging in them, thinking of how we can use voice. But this was an innovation in 2017, and I'm pretty proud of what my teams, with everyone around us, with our partners, we could really pull off. We did a voice campaign. Now, it had a button. The moment the email opened, it only had a button. The button is green, because green is the color of money. Green is the color of initiate something new, right? So green was also not in our brand palette. So sometimes, you have to go away from what is status quo and do something that's how innovations happen, right? So the green color, and the email simply said, enough of reading. It's time to listen into something which could change your life. It's important. You click on that and there is a voice recorded message. And actually I recorded it myself. Went to the studio, said, kharcha nahi karenge, in-house, let's try it out, let's understand how it is working and then scale it up. Did that. It clearly said that, hey, we have been missing you, where are you? And why it worked with when I introduced myself on this short 30-second or whatever, because now it is an authoritative person from the brand trying to talk to you. And not a bot, it's not a plain advert. It's like a message, like how you would want a Virat Kohli to be talking to a customer through your platform. That's what Ganeya is trying to do. Okay, Virat is going to say, hi, XYZ, hi, this person, hi, that creates that impact. As a consumer, you would think, oh, it's for me, it's meant for me. And every single damn email was personalized. Because we had the data. At least we were like pseudo tech. Tech has evolved now, but we were able to pull off things slowly and steadily. So this voice campaign broke all the records. 36 point some % of reactivation where these customers gave business to us. We did more than 2.5 CR of business because now we were able to plug in new products, and it was a universal password. So it was very easy for anyone. And my target audience is all youngsters. So they would not think, they would just act if they like something, right? So they went, they changed their password. It was only applicable one time. So we told them that is exclusive for you. Just go and change your password. We know you are stuck and we don't want you to be stuck here. So again, the reaching with that heart, understanding the consumer problem and fixing it. And the moment you fix it, there are people who want to act on it. So what I'm talking about, 36 point some % is a high level number that I have inched in my memory and head. Because that was in our first shot. After that, we went on doing with buckets, with different things. And then there was more conversion. There was a lot of activation that happened. And it became internally a case study also, because when you have to go and resurrect, that's what you said, dead clients, then it is a very massive project. And then first thing that you want to think in terms of project is, my cost of acquisition was 100 rupees. And more so in the industry, cost of resurrection is usually 200 rupees. But you want to do that, invest that money, because this is my target audience. So I want to reactivate them, but the cost is usually much higher. And here, if you are able to, at a minimized cost, which I would say instead of 100, you spend only 50, 60 rupees, 40 rupees, optimize it further to make it 20 rupees. It's a win-win for all clients, us, business, sales, everyone.
Absolutely.
No, like I was, sharing this off camera, that user restriction is actually very close to my heart as well. In fact, very creative way to solve for it, actually. So congratulations on that campaign, first of all.
Thank you.
And we tried something very experimental with MPL as well. We got a celebrity to, remind people that, hey, Anupreet, you have, this much balance in your wallet. Why don't you come and play? We've added another 200 rupees to your wallet. Why don't you come and play on the MPL app again? They were trying to do this with a generic campaign, but the point was that people were not watching the video till completion, and they were missing out on the core of the message. So by just calling them by their name, we got them to actually go all the way and watch the video till completion, because they knew that there's something interesting just for me.
Yeah.
So that just for me part that you played in that particular personalized campaign really did the trick for you. I love how marketers sometimes are able to call out flaws in the product. So just like you actually could call out to the product team that I've done my research and it kind of tells me that the user flow is broken when it comes to forgot password. It's great how marketers' contribution is beyond the sales and marketing side of the world, but also in the process of improving the product, as product is becoming the revenue generating engine for the companies. This was very, very insightful. I'm going to close this conversation by knowing more about work that you're doing beyond corporate. I think I was fascinated by the book that you were a part of. I was fascinated to read about the support Saturdays that you've run. Would love to know more about this. Maybe you can start by telling us how do you find time for all of that, but then also tell us the impact that it has created.
The more you adopt technology, the greater you can manage your time. My only fascination about tech is how can I extract more time for myself in what I want to do. And that is where tech has always been, helpful. So, Anu, we could do another podcast because Support Saturdays is such a fantastic story all together.
I'll take you up on that, actually.
This was 2020. Yeah. And I have some teams who help me with especially the LinkedIn content, because there's a lot of research and thought that goes behind it. And 2020, we all had little more time. We were not going to offices, right? I'm talking about the period which was lockdown.
Yep.
That was a time when one particular day, somebody reached out and said, we have this method of weekly messages that I look at from social media accounts. So in case if something is important, I need to, otherwise there are hundreds of messages, you can't reply, but there's somebody who's screening. I wish there was some tech for it. I can put my keywords and I can get it ready-made. There is a human intervention right now. Somebody is screening and we have this report that happens. And I got to know that no important messages, whatever, but too many messages. So I'm not making the report because earlier the person had to put on an Excel 5, 10, 15 messages. Now this is long list. So I was told that all are similar. So I was also free. I said, what do you mean by similar? Are these some bots working on LinkedIn? Spam messages? No, from real people. What are the messages? Messages are frantic requests for job. Layoffs just started. People started losing their jobs. So my first trigger was, I feel from within, if somebody reaches out to me for help, then I would want to help. My first instinct is to help. If I'm not able to, then it is a different thing. So I got a little thought in my head that what's the point of having a personal brand? Because I keep going in interviews and podcasts and people try to tell me you have a personal brand. What is the point of personal brand if I'm not able to help people? And then I started losing from the bottom of my heart, because what was happening during COVID time. It was not a good, any which way scenario. People were in difficult times. So then I thought that just bete ek din, I just wrote an email to a very close friend of mine. At that time, he was leading some good stuff in Amazon. And I told this person, his name is Vinod. I said, Vinod, we should do something here because I have this idea. And the idea was nothing but the mechanism of virality. So I thought that if I were to pick up this person's profile and put it on my LinkedIn and say, hey guys, if you're looking for a person like this, please hire him. He's in trouble right now. How much impact can I make?
Correct.
Versus if I can have more people with high following on LinkedIn like me to come together And we use the mechanism of what we call today Twitter trends. Trends are nothing but so many people trying to talk about a subject at a particular time. That becomes a trend for a momentary basis. Nobody did that on LinkedIn ever. What we in standard media call as media block. So in my career, I would have also done several media blocks where 15 minute ke liye radio pe only my brand. And we take huge pride because then you know that, wow, this was good. So okay, at our own level, using our personal brands, can we do a block on LinkedIn where so many people can come together? Whoever feels passionate about it, and you will not believe, I didn't have to go anywhere telling people anything. I told one person got 5 people. I put it on a group, which is my official group. 10 people came, yes, we want to do it. In fact, we were looking, instead of giving money, is there anything that we can do together to help other people? And this became a team of around 82 people. And then after 82 or close to 100, then I stopped because you will not believe somebody replicated this model and said that, okay, we will share your CV and you have to pay us so much. So I started getting all that. I said, now I have to block this to the people, first select people who I know. I don't want to increase this team. And these 85 team members are all known to me professionally, where they are working, who they are. What we did was, it is called as Support Saturdays because Saturday, when we are free, 11 in the morning, all of us came together. And there is a brand page that you can check. It has high following also. And anybody looking for help has to just upload their CV and say #Support Saturdays. So there is a team who's qualifying these CVs. We had to put little QC, qualify that the person should not be in the job. Why? Because when 80 of us are resharing their CV, it is amounting to more than 1 million views in one shot for that particular CV.
Wow.
The highest last placement that I remember is of a CTO who was placed in a company in Pune with a salary of 1.25 CR.
Oh, wow.
And he thanked me so much. He said, "Mujhe nahi malum tha, Support Saturdays can do it for me." And he didn't have work for 6 months. It was just about bringing the demand and the supply together by using our channel. We ran it for close to 2 years, 2.5 years. And then the markets were looking good. Everybody got too many jobs. I said, now the team still exists and we keep mentoring people because all our senior folks.
That's fantastic. That's very giving of you. Would like to go a little deep into the book as well, and that will be my last nugget that I want to take away from you. But just tell us more about the book. What was the motivation behind it, and what is the biggest takeaway out of that?
So book also has a history. I started a platform. This was again at the same time, once you are in that flow, creativity is all about getting into the flow. So I think I was in that flow. So in that flow, Support Saturdays happened. #V2 happened. V2 Voices is more about giving a platform to women entrepreneurs, startup and corporate women, a platform which is free flow. Today, I'm sitting with you without any inhibitions because I'm not representing my brand or my organization. I can talk anything and I can feel free. Likewise, there was no platform where women, professionals could go and speak things. I just wanted, it's like what we call podcast. It is more of a collective podcast. So through various things, because I also extensively work on the field of diversity, inclusion, women empowerment and stuff like that. So I said, it's time that we get senior women leaders to talk about things that matter in the world together. So that's how the it started on Women's Day. It was a monthly property.
Nice.
One panel discussion with 5 of us chilling nicely on a Zoom call and talking and telling, ye hota hai, wo hota hai, this is how you should do, that is how you should do. And just relax without having the burden of we are representing a brand. And we picked some very serious topics where women came. You can check them out on v2.live, still there. Towards the end, around 10 panel discussions I did. And then again, I got busy, so much busy at work that I was not able to, 10 happened. And in my head, I was supposed to do 5. Double bonus, 10 I did. And then there is so much of request which is coming from other women leaders. We also want to be a part of it. So I said, maybe we'll do season 2 now. But how do I close this entire thing is when after 1 year, after 10 episodes, got all these 50 women leaders to come together to co-author for the first time in the world and to get 50 women come together to write one book.
Yeah.
So it's an ebook.
Yeah.
We all did that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm pretty proud of it.
Wow.
And then this ebook is also available on Amazon, and co-authored single page dedicated to one women leader, in which they are expressing whatever their thoughts were in the panel, culminated into a book.
Nice.
And it was released. So
wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Poonam, for taking the time out for this and sharing, your wealth of knowledge with us. Really, really appreciate your time today. Had a lovely conversation with you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much. I'm so glad to be on your podcast and wish you all a very happy and a fantastic run ahead in the tech world.
Thank you so much.